I saw Srila Prabhupada in New York in the Henry Street Temple, and when I saw Srila Prabhupada, it was, I knew that he was looking right through me. It felt like he was looking right through me, and he could see all of my contamination. You know, I was going through some. Of course, there are 4 kinds of people who come to Krishna consciousness, so I was definitely in a distressed condition. And when I saw Srila Prabhupada, I had read something also before I saw him, so I read some of the books. I had read the Krishna book and Nectar of Devotion, and also the Bhagavad Gita. But even the Bhagavad Gita, even previous to that, I read a different translation of Bhagavad Gita. But I was crying when I saw Srila Prabhupada. But then he looked at me in such a way that I realized that my tears were totally based on the bodily concept of life, and he was not going to be impressed by my great emotion to see the pure devotee. He knew that it was this was some kind of a false show. So I couldn't. I had to stop. I stopped crying immediately, and I just felt that he just saw everything about me. And as the years went on, every time I saw Srila Prabhupada, I got a little bit less contaminated. And finally, about so many years later, I was happy that he saw me. I was getting a little pure, having teeny bit understanding my position as a fallen soul. So I got a little bit, maybe shadow of humility. So that was, but I found that very interesting how, and a lot of devotees I think experience this when Prabhupada looks at you. He looks at the soul. He was looking at the soul. Wasn't fooled by any of the material assets that we try to fool ourselves with.
I took initiation, and I was very nervous. And when I came up and he was asking me the 4 regs, I could hardly speak. And actually, when he looked at me, it was like when you have, 2 magnets, I don't know if they're opposite or what, and they go like this. Well, my head just went boing. It was so strange. My head just jerked away really quickly, and I couldn't look at him. I felt that he was looking, that he could see right through to me, and he knew exactly who I was, where I was at, whatever else. I was just thinking, it was very cleansing. I just really felt like he could see right through me, and it was too hard to take, so I couldn't look at him. And I looked back, and again, I had to look away. It was very, very intense. And then I got my beads, and and then he gave me my name, and he says, "This is a name of," he says, "My name, your name is Vrindavaneshwari. This is a name for Radharani." And it was so wonderful because it was also very funny. I had a very short name, and I never liked my Karmi name. And actually, I had Jai Tirtha give me a devotional name 2 weeks after I joined the temple because I just didn't want to have a Karmi name. And all the time I was also thinking that I wanted a really long name. My name was short, and I wanted a long name. So Prabhupada gives me this Vrindavaneshwari. It had 16 letters. Nobody for months could ever pronounce it. But it was very, very satisfying. It was just so nice. Prabhupada's mercy, he fulfills my desire.
Well, actually, the first thing he said was, and he laughed, he says, "Well, how do you like your name?" And I thought, well, yeah, fine. It's nice. And then I didn't realize afterwards that the reason he had named me Guna was because I'm from Laguna, so that was the thing, what it was, kind of funny. But I didn't click, I was just too in awe. So anyway, so he asked me to paint the Bhagavad Gita, and I said, well, how, and he said, you have to become like Sanjaya. And he said, Sanjaya, he saw the whole battle in his mind like a television. And I said, oh, all right, okay, I'll try, And then he talked about how Jadharani was painting it, even though she didn't really know how to paint, that she just did it, and Krishna instructed her and gave her the ability to do it. And I don't know how long I was there. And then you know, it probably was like maybe a half hour, and it was some little small talk here and there. And then he also wanted me to paint. He had the deities up there called the Kartamasha deities. And I don't remember if there's two of them. There's a little one and there's a bigger one. And I think he told me the story how he got that, and he told me how he wanted it to be painted over again. So he asked me to do that. And then he told me that, he said, you know, anytime, you know, you need to talk to me, just come up and talk to me, you know, and if you have any questions. But I never did, because I was, you know, Prabhupada had all his guards around and stuff, and I was always too shy just to go, I need to talk to him, and you know, and I still beat myself on the head because I didn't do that.
When it came time to be initiated, I was in so much anxiety, and I was so overwhelmed with so many different feelings. Some people used to say, and I felt it too sometimes when you were in the presence of Srila Prabhupada, you felt like you were transparent. You could see everything about you, and not just that you were pure spirit soul, you could see all your Maya. So they sat me right next to Srila Prabhupada's right hand at the foot of the Vyasasana, and Bhagavan was doing the fire sacrifice. And I couldn't stop crying, and the tears were just pouring down my face. But fortunately, I had a sari on, so I pulled it down over my face. And I wanted to be really careful. I'd seen a lot of initiations, and I wanted to make sure I did everything right. You know, say the 4 principles right, and say at least 16 rounds, not just 16 rounds, and speak loudly so he could hear me. And so when they called me up, I did all of that right. And then he said, so your name is, I don't remember what sequence, if he says your name first or afterwards. I think he said, so your name is, and it sounded like he said Barbara. And I thought, well, yes, that's already my name, or maybe Barbara means something in Sanskrit, I'm not sure. Then he handed me my beads, and I'd had like a slight surgery on my right hand, and it was hurting, so I reached with my left hand. And he said, right hand, but I couldn't understand what he was saying, and he wouldn't give me my beads. And, you know, I was really, you know, about to burst out into loud sobs, you know. And then Nanda Kumara kind of elbowed me and said, your right hand. So I reached with my right hand, and he handed me my beads. But I thought he'd changed his mind and he wasn't going to initiate me, that he could see I wasn't qualified. And then after the initiation, I walked out, and Nanda Kumar came up and said, so your name is, and I thought he said Brahmacharini. And I thought, well, I've got 2 children and I'm 6 months pregnant, but at least it's Sanskrit. Yeah. Then he handed me the paper, and it said Bhavatarini. He said, and you're very lucky because they didn't have a name. Pradumya picks all the names out, but because they didn't know you were getting initiated, Srila Prabhupada just named you on the spot. And that's Srila Prabhupada's sister's name. And later on, I got to meet her, and she used to call me Bhavatarini Dasi Dasi. So that was my good fortune that they forgot about me.
When I desired to get initiated, Gunagrahi, temple president in San Diego, actually recommended me for initiation, and because I had spent some time in the San Diego temple, and Jayatirtha did the sacrifice. So when I went up to get my beads from Srila Prabhupada, I paid my full dandavats because I was living outside of the temple, and I didn't know that there was maybe some kind of a rule that ladies shouldn't pay their dandavats, but I spread out right on the floor, paid my full dandavats, and then I got up, and I had this one little bouquet that I had made to give to Srila Prabhupada. So I extended my hand with the bouquet to present it to Srila Prabhupada, and I reached out my left hand to accept my beads. and Jayatirath is standing on the side of Srila Prabhupada, and he said to me, don't accept your beads with your left hand, you accept your beads with your right hand. So I put the flowers in my left hand, I extended the flowers in my right hand, in my left hand, and reached for my beads in my right hand. And then Jayatirath says again, no, don't give Srila Prabhupada flowers with your left hand. You have to give it in your right hand. So I'm going back and forth, and meanwhile, I'm getting a little nervous. So finally, after this goes on a couple of times, Srila Prabhupada just looked at Jayatirath. He said, it's okay. It's okay. So this was my first experience as feeling a fool in front of my spiritual master. Actually, all the little teeny anecdotes I have are just with that realization of being a fool in front of the spiritual master.